Well, lots of great people joining today. Really am just so excited that you could be with us today for another session of Empower Hour. As a reminder, this event is being brought to you by the Ohio University Alumni Association. And so our goal is to advance the mission of Ohio University. And we do that by engaging you, our supporters and our alumni. And we really need you to stay involved with Ohio University, this university that you love, so we can keep providing awesome opportunities to current and future Bobcats. And so thank you so much for joining. It's going to be a lot of fun. My name is Caleb Biesecker, and I am the Associate Director of Alumni Experiences. I'm going to be your host for the day, and we're going to start by going over a few housekeeping items before we get rolling. And so just for your knowledge, your camera and microphones are turned off. We definitely encourage you to engage in the chat. It makes things a lot of fun when you're active and involved there. I know our presenters are going to be looking in there, trying to respond to questions and looking at what you have to say. And so please be involved in there as much as you can in the chat. I would recommend changing the to function in your chat to all panelists and attendees so you can communicate with other attendees. And that way other folks can see what you're saying as well. It just makes the engagement a lot more fun. And also, if you have any tech questions, feel free to put that in there. We'll try and help you as best we can. I wanted to remind you all, we are recording this presentation. So it's going to be available on the Ohio University Alumni Association webpage. Usually takes a couple weeks before we can get it uploaded, but it will be on there if you want to share with your friends or watch it again. And so please feel free to do that. And the last thing I'll say is be on the lookout for a survey that is going to come after the event. We really just need your feedback so we can continue to improve all these virtual events. And there's also some links there where you can go see some other events that we are offering and other ways that you can engage with Ohio University. So be sure to check that out. That is all I have. I'm going to turn things over to our presenters for today.
Thanks, Caleb. We're going to introduce ourselves first, and then we'll get right into the presentation. I'm Amy Lipka, and I am the Director of Adult Education for Live Healthy Appalachia, which we're going to talk all about over the next 50 minutes or so. I oversee a lot of different programs for health and wellness programs for adults, again, which you will hear a little bit more about why we do what we do and how we do it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Heidi Fisher, and I am currently in Logan, Ohio. So I don't know if any of you are in Logan, but I'm the Executive Director of Live Healthy Appalachia. I've actually been with Live Healthy for almost since the beginning. We're 10 years strong, so in various capacities. So I'm excited to be the Executive Director and to be here with all of you today to talk about whole food plant-based eating. And we decided it's going to kind of, be a mix. We're going to be in person. We're going to have a PowerPoint. So I hope if you're able to see the PowerPoint, if you can't see it, we'll do our best to describe what we are showing on the PowerPoint. And then we have a surprise for you at the end. I'm going to switch over to my PowerPoint and we will get started.
I didn't mention that I'm in Athens from my lovely kitchen.
Yay. All right. So here we go. So as we mentioned, we are Live Healthy Appalachia, and today we're going to tell you how you can transform your life. I think a lot of us right now are looking for some life transformation with whole food plant-based eating. All right, so just talking a little bit about Live Healthy Appalachia and what we do. We are a nonprofit, so we're a 501c3, and we were founded in 2010. So last year we had our 10-year anniversary. Unfortunately, we weren't able to have a big celebration, but we are almost 11 years strong. Our mission is to promote healthy eating and active living through educational opportunities and community partnerships. So again, we focus on how to help people eat healthy and how to keep them active, which you can imagine is very important these days. Our vision is empowered people making healthy choices. So that's what we're working toward. And Amy can attest that, that word empowered is a word that we hear over and over and over again. What we're doing, we're not giving people a prescription. We're not saying do this, don't do that. but we are empowering them, giving them the tools they need to make healthy choices on their own.
So I'm really a program person. I do a lot of organizing and implementing programs in really thoughtful ways that seem like they're going to give people support to make some of these transitions. And so one of Live Healthy's cornerstone programs is called the Complete Health Improvement Program. We call that CHIP, not potato chips, but Complete Health Improvement Program. And that's an intensive 10-week program where we work together to kind of just figure out what kind of changes are going to work within our own lifestyles to make us healthier. We also do a lot of community cooking classes right now. Those have transitioned into meal kits. We had a class last night over Zoom where people cooked a meal kit that we gave them ahead of time, and then we came together over Zoom and talked about how that went and talked about other ideas of things people might do differently next time. We also offer some different professional development opportunities, mostly in the form of our Appalachian Health Summit, where local health professionals can come together and just kind of hear about relevant topics. And then we also do Live Healthy Kids, which is a 22-week curriculum that is a hands-on cooking program in second grade. That's kind of transitioned into some virtual programming this year as well. But in normal times, we do a lot of in-person classes that like really get people into putting their hands on different foods, trying different foods, and really trying to create a positive experience around healthy foods, because if it's not fun and pleasant, who's going to do it? So we try to make it as fun as possible through our programs.
All right, we're going to take a second here and do a quick poll. So the question is, do you know someone who has a chronic disease? And that chronic disease could be ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's, asthma, cancer, COPD, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, osteoporosis. Do you know of anyone that has one or more of these chronic diseases? All right. I believe, yes.
Everyone has a yes.
Yes, 100%.
There's
and
no no's.
Yes, I will say that's not surprising. That's not shocking, right? We live in America. So we're going to be talking about why we do what we do. And this is one of the big reasons, right? To help individuals with chronic disease.
So as I mentioned before, we really design our programs around this idea of, a positive experience with healthy food. That said, kind of the reason why we do that, and kind of some of the deeper reasons are making people healthier, preventing chronic disease, reversing chronic disease. We've seen that happen to people in some of our programs. We've all, or not, maybe not all of us, but we do hear a lot about healthy eating. People come to us many times because they've been told by their physician that they need to eat healthier or exercise more. But sometimes people need extra support outside of that. It's maybe sometimes not enough to just get told that, but we feel like in order to do that, people need a lot of support, and they need real tools and information in order to be able to implement some of those changes. So pretty much all of our programs are designed to address a lot of these things that you see here on the list: weight maintenance, weight loss, providing more energy, mental clarity, improved sleep, and in a lighter environmental footprint. Again, kind of that said, people kind of know their own why, and this is a list of why people find us a lot of times, we really try to give them an engaging social experience that's going to be meaningful and fun, while also addressing some of these things on the list. And, you know, we do hear story after story of folks who do make these changes and they do feel better and they do have better numbers in terms of cholesterol and blood pressure. People talk about how they sleep better and have more mental clarity. And one of those folks is here with us today. She's already introduced herself to us.
Yeah. So as Amy mentioned, that I have participated in the CHIP program, We'll Live Healthy Appalachia. I was in the second cohort, probably I think it was about 9 years ago. And I'm a registered dietitian and I have a master's degree in nutrition. So I did not participate to get more information on nutrition. I had the information, but this concept of whole food plant-based eating was very new at that point. It wasn't really familiar to us. And so I felt as a registered dietitian, I needed to participate in this program to hear what Live Healthy Appalachia was telling the community. And I wanted the research behind it. I had no intention of actually adopting a plant-based diet because I was healthy and eating the way that they told me that I should eat in school, in my education. So when I started CHIP, I found out that they were collecting data. And of course, you know, you're from a university, you know, if you are participating in a study, you don't want to be that outlier, the person that messes up the data. So I participated, I was compliant. I went completely plant-based for 10 weeks. Mind you, I had no chronic disease. I didn't have high blood pressure. You know, I didn't need to lose weight and I thought I was completely fine. However, once I started eating whole food plant-based, and we'll tell you about what this means later, I immediately started feeling better. So going down this list, I did lose a few pounds. I had more energy. I felt happier. I could think better and I slept better. I was waking before my alarm clock went off, ready to wake up, ready for the day. So for me, like I said, you know, I didn't even have chronic disease, but just that switch, just that small step for me, it was amazing. So I have honestly experienced, you know, a lot of these benefits of why we do what we do. And that's why we're so passionate about what we do, because we have experienced it, we have lived it, and we're really excited to share it with you today. All right. So,
hey, Heidi and Amy.
Yes.
Quick question in the chat. Someone asked, you know, when is it too late to prevent some of those things? Obviously, except if you already have something. Do you have any insights on that?
Do you want to take that, Amy?
Yeah, I'd love to. I don't feel like it's ever too late. We had a person in her 80s participate recently in one of your classes, Heidi, I think last fall, who had previously had a stroke, and she experienced lower cholesterol and she felt better. Her kids were happy, her grandkids were happy that, you know, she had made some changes to be healthier. And so one of the things that we say in some of our programs is, you know, as you get older, you know, sometimes the quality of your life can diminish because you might have more health problems. And so this style and, you know, kind of making these lifestyle changes, even as you get older, can help you just feel better, even at advanced ages, I would say. Does that, do you have anything to add to that, Heidi?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Amy, and it's never too late. Regardless of your age, adopting a whole food plant-based diet, likely you're going to see benefits. So one of the things that we've seen, and the research proves, we didn't make this a very research heavy presentation, but we do have the research to back it up. If you're interested in that, we can get it to you after this presentation. But, you know, if you do have a chronic disease, you know, whatever that is, if it's heart disease, if it's diabetes, it is possible at any age to reverse at least some of that. So, we've seen research has proven that, there's calcification in your arteries, hardening of your arteries, and going whole food plant-based can actually make that calcification go away. Individuals with maybe with arthritis at a later stage in life, at any stage in life, some of the foods that we avoid in a whole food plant-based diet, they cause inflammation. So when you're eating these healthy foods with antioxidants and phytonutrients, it's not causing inflammation in your body. And you feel that I can move my hands more freely, I can move my body more freely. So at any age, at any stage of your life, there's benefits to be experienced with switching to whole food plant-based eating.
And that's, a quick disclaimer. That's not to say that if you, eat this way, you're never going to get cancer or you're never going to, get some of these chronic diseases. But chances are you have more resiliency to kind of deal with things that might arise in the future as well. So it's, we always say it's not a guarantee, but it's a good way to think about things, to do the best for your body.
Absolutely. Yes, definitely not a panacea, but it's amazing. We've seen amazing things. And thank you for that question.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about what whole food plant-based is. And, we abbreviate it WFPB. The PB is not peanut butter, but it's plant-based. So what is whole food plant-based? I'm going to break it up into two. But before we do, let's do a poll. Another one. I just want to kind of see where our audience is. Are you familiar with whole food plant-based eating? Have you heard of it? Do you do it? Do you have a friend or family member who, is whole food plant-based? Getting some good responses here about almost.
A lot of people seem familiar.
Yes. That's great.
I feel like the word has gotten a lot more mainstream in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm. I agree, Amy. So we have 88% has heard of it. And if you haven't, we're so glad you are here. All right. So talking about this concept of whole food. Whole food, we're not talking about the grocery store chain Whole Food. We're talking about whole food that you eat. And a whole food is a food that is not processed or minimally processed. It doesn't have, any additives or chemicals or artificial ingredients. It's a whole food. To help you understand that, I'll give you some examples. So looking at a whole food versus a processed food. So in our programming, as you can see here on your screen, if you have a screen in front of you, on the left, we have some potatoes, right? Potatoes are a great example of a whole food. Now, when you start processing that food, adding chemicals, adding artificial ingredients, you can create potato chips. Now, I will be the first to say, I love potato chips, but that's not what we promote, and I try not to eat potato chips. I
like what you're saying, Heidi. I love that you recognize that you love potato chips, because one of the things that I often talk about is like, if you come to one of our programs, you don't need us to help you eat more potato chips. You might be really great at that on your own, but you might need us to help figure out a really great, healthy, whole food recipe that's going to make potatoes delicious.
Exactly. Yes. Another example of a whole food versus a processed food. Here I have an apple. That's your whole food. So we promote eating apples, and again, as Amy said, we do have some recipes using apples that keeps them as a whole food. It kind of, jazzes them up a little bit. So the processed version of an apple could be apple pie. It could be, I don't know, apple strudel. It could be apple cake, anything that kind of diminishes the value or takes away the nutritional value and the nutritional quality of the apple is a processed food. Another example is oatmeal. So this is where we're talking about our grains, and whole grains is what we talk about. So whole food, whole grains. So oatmeal as opposed to oatmeal cream pies. Oatmeal as opposed to maybe like an oatmeal energy bar that you buy in a package that has things added to it. So eating the whole food is what we talk about. Another example, this is definitely something that you would see at a Live Healthy cooking class. This on the left side, we have this beautiful picture of these black bean tacos. And we might add some lime juice in there, some corn, some cilantro, maybe throw in some tomatoes, maybe some avocados, a lot of whole foods to make it taste great. A processed version of this might be, let's say you go to Taco Bell and you have a beef cheese taco. And the more I see on TV, they've really tricked out their tacos at Taco Bell. There's layers of cheese and now there's bacon and all kinds of stuff. And one thing I do want to say, we are not shaming anyone who eats processed food. That's one thing that we pride ourselves on in our class. So if we're talking about this and maybe you're thinking, oh my gosh, I just had, a beefy cheesy taco for lunch. We are not shaming anyone. What we do is we give you the tools, the techniques, right? And the research to maybe the next time, have a black bean taco with some vegetables on it. So any of these pictures here, if maybe you had pie earlier, or oatmeal cream pie or tacos, again, we're not shaming you. You're not a bad person. We are just giving you the information and the tools that you need to make choices that are more whole food based and plant based. One of the reasons I do want to stress the whole food, there are a lot of foods out there, as Amy said, this is becoming more mainstream, and a lot of companies realize that, hey, this is popular and we're going to pick up on that. So plant-based, and you can find plant-based foods that are maybe pretty processed. Okay, so let's say maybe there's like a soy chicken patty. Okay, might be plant-based, there's no chicken in it, right? It's soy-based, but it's not a whole food. It does have chemicals added. It is highly processed. So that's why we put this whole food part in front of it. They're doing plant-based laundry detergent. They're doing plant-based everything. So that's why this whole food part is really important, stressing that the food is minimally processed and doesn't contain additives or artificial ingredients. All right, the last example here is, water. We promote water consumption over maybe soda or, like a Starbucks fruity frappuccino kind of drink that has a lot of caffeine, a lot of sugar. So again, just keeping things more natural, more whole is what we focus on.
Do you want to chat really quickly about, so there was a question or just a comment in the chat about how using whole foods does take more time than maybe using something that's processed. Do you want to chat about that?
Sure.
Add comments as needed, because it does come up. It comes up with people in our programs, and it's a discussion that we have.
It comes up a lot, and that's for sure. So using whole foods, it takes more time, right? To come home and slice and dice and chop and saute and make something, as opposed to just getting something out of a bag, throwing it in the oven and eating it. It can take more time. One thing I will say in Live Healthy, all of our recipes that we do promote, that we do use, are pretty quick, simple, easy, cost-effective. In our classes, we do talk about tips and tricks that we use. Amy and I both have our list of things that we do to make it work with our lifestyle. I work full time. I have 3 kids at home. My husband works and lives in Michigan. So there are ways, I will say, to make it work and keep it simple. I'm a very simple person. And we do have ways that we do that. One of my ways of doing that is Sunday is kind of my day to prep ingredients and to make batches of things that we eat throughout the week. So one of the things I'll make a big crock pot full of steel cut oats and turn on the crock pot. It's done in 3 hours. I put it in the fridge and we eat it all week. I will also make my lunch one thing for the whole week. So it might be a pot of soup that I eat every day for lunch. One of the things we're going to be talking about is, sweet potatoes with beans on it. I'll eat that for the whole week. So there are ways that you can keep it simple so that you don't come home from work at 5:30 at night and think, oh my gosh, I got to start cooking. There are things that we teach people in our classes that make it doable and easier. Do you have anything to add to that, Amy?
Yeah, I do. With what Heidi says, I do, I noticed that Julie responded and says it does take time. And so, especially if you're kind of making a switch or if you're trying to, implement some different lifestyle changes, I look at it as a self-care thing. Like if you're trying to make changes and you're trying to feel better and you're trying to like invest resources and time in yourself, I think it is important to recognize that this might take a little bit more time. I feel like it doesn't have to take all of the time. And I really like what she said about cooking has become a hobby. I think when I stopped thinking about cooking maybe as like, I got to do this thing when I get home, or rather than shifting the perspective of like, well, what else am I going to do? I'm going to like chill out for a little bit and do some cooking and, treat it as a mindfulness thing. And so sometimes it does take that recognition and being okay with just maybe a little bit of extra time at the beginning, for sure. At the beginning.
Definitely. And if you have any family members that are old enough to help you, like I said, I have 3 kids and I get out the cutting board and the knives, they chop with me. Another thing that Amy's really great at doing is, I mentioned that our recipes are easy, cost effective. So we are great with, canned beans and frozen corn and frozen peas. They make frozen onions and peppers. So we like using those convenience foods. Those are like our convenience foods, right? Those things that make it easier to eat plant-based. So we'll talk about, canned foods and frozen foods in a little bit, but definitely there's a lot of things out there that can make it easier for sure. All right, so let's talk about the second part of whole food plant-based. So we know what a whole food is. What does plant-based mean? Plant-based means that your foods come from plants. Okay, so it's something that you might go into the garden or an orchard, and those are plants that we promote. So the opposite of plant-based, processed foods, animal foods. So none of the recipes that we have, the cooking that we do, it does not involve animal products or processed food. So we don't use meat, any kind of meat in our cooking or recipes, or dairy. One thing I do want to say about that, again, we don't shame people for eating meat and dairy, okay? Our thought behind it is we are giving people, again, the tools and techniques they need to prepare foods that maybe we're not familiar with preparing. I think most Americans, we know how to eat cheese, right? We know how to we know how to eat meat. We got that down. But what we've kind of lost track of is how to prepare these fresh whole foods. So that's what we focus on. We'll talk about the spectrum in a little bit. And again, we just focus on plant-based also for our cooking classes. It makes it for a much easier cleanup and much safer when we're working with kids. As you can imagine, we don't want to have cross-contamination, meat and things like that. So it makes it really clean and really easy to cook this way. So plant-based foods that come from plants. And this graphic here, I think gives you a good visual of what plant foods are. So plant foods are your fruits, apples, bananas, figs, grapes, vegetables, so your greens, which is your lettuce, collards, kale, peppers, corn. This graphic separates out tubers, so those are more your starchy root vegetables, so your potatoes, sweet potatoes, carrots, beets, and then whole grains, which are millet, quinoa, barley, rice, whole wheat, and oats. And then your legumes, which that used to be a kind of a foreign word. What are legumes? But basically those are beans, lentils, chickpeas, things like that. So this is kind of what we focus on in our classes. And again, giving people the tools they need to prepare these foods so that they taste great and it's easy to prepare. So talking about making it easy, this is the graphic that we typically use in our classes. This is the power plate. And this is created by the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And we like this graphic because it's very simple. You might have seen, USDA, they have a version called the My Plate, and the plate has kind of evolved over the years, but this is the plant-based plate. And we like it because it is simple, right? It has your 4 categories, your fruits, vegetables, your legumes, and your grains. But also it's a great tool to make you think about what you're eating, to make sure that you're including all of these different things on your plate. Also, if you look at the pictures on the outside, very colorful. So if you do have these foods on your plate, it should look beautiful. Sometimes I know in America, we might look at our plate and it looks very brown. It looks very yellow. So by using this power plate, you're like, oh, I'm going to add some fruit to this. I'm going to add some vegetables to this to brighten it up, add color, which adds those antioxidants, those phytochemicals, which help us prevent disease and keep us healthy. So just a few examples here. Again, on the left here, we have a bowl of plain oatmeal, which is a whole grain. And we love oatmeal, we promote oatmeal. But if you were to use the power plate, and again, this is a bowl, not a plate, but still the same concept. Looking, okay, what can I add to this oatmeal to make it more powerful? Okay, so, some plant foods I can add are some berries. I can add maybe some chia seeds or some ground flax meal, maybe some nut butter or some roasted nuts. How about some plant milk, adding it to the top? So again, using that power plate, really looking at it, how can I add more color? How can I add more nutrients to this is something else that we do in Live Healthy Appalachia. And another way to go plant-based. On the left here, I have a lovely baked potato. It looks kind of boring as is, right? So if we were to give this, to the average American, what we've been taught to do to this baked potato is add butter, add sour cream, add some bacon bits, and maybe some of the cheese sauce to the top. That's what we've been taught to do with a baked potato, at least in Appalachia. That's how I was raised. You add dairy, a lot of dairy, to your baked potato to make it taste good, and a lot of salt. Put some salt on there too. But in Live Healthy Appalachia, what we're going to do to this baked potato, we're going to make it into a meal. Okay, we're going to create this lovely bean, maybe a chili, black bean chili to put on it. And we're going to add some corn and maybe some guacamole. On the side, maybe we'll do a salad or some fresh fruit. So again, we're adding color, we're adding nutrients, and making it more healthful and more plant-based. So you're going to leave this baked potato feeling like I just had a very nourishing meal.
There's a couple of questions that have popped up in the chat. I just want to recognize that.
Yes.
We will definitely get to those questions very soon.
Okay. All right, awesome.
So just to kind of like reiterate what Heidi said, we look at this plant-based eating, whole food plant-based eating as a continuum rather than an all or nothing thing. And the way that we kind of think about it is if you're increasing some of these whole foods, chances are you're probably also at the same time decreasing some of the processed and animal-based foods because there's less room for those on your plate. So if you're filling your plate with all of the really good stuff, there's less room for things that maybe aren't the healthiest choices. So just reiterating again, it's not an all or nothing approach. It's really just trying to encourage some of those things on that left side of this continuum and things that Heidi has mentioned earlier. We talk about the continuum a lot because, you know, we also want people to feel like this is something that's doable. So even just making small changes in the middle of that continuum can be really helpful.
Absolutely. So as Amy mentioned, we're really good at kind of taking you where you are and getting you to where you want to be and allowing you to decide that. All right, so you might be wondering where to start. So yeah, I do want to make the transition to eating more whole food, plant-based meals. Where do I start? There's a lot of different ways to start. The first one is maybe you just want to take the leap, okay? Let's say I just want to go completely whole food, plant-based, every meal, every day, and that's definitely an option. That approach is not for everyone, but that's a possibility. You could totally do that. You could also take it one day at a time. So let's say this next week you plan, okay, every Monday for the next month, I'm going to go completely whole food, plant-based. So no animal products, no processed foods on Mondays. Let's say that's your day. And then once you have Monday down, okay, now I'm going to do Monday and Wednesday. So just taking it one day at a time. You could also do it one food group at a time. So maybe you say, okay, this week I'm going to omit all dairy from what I eat. And once you have that down, okay, now I'm going to do no dairy and I'm going to take out all red meat. You get the idea. Once you have dairy and red meat, now I'm going to move on, no processed meat, and just taking it out one at a time until what you're left with is whole food, whole plant-based foods. The other thing you can do is do one meal at a time. So this coming week, I'm just going to do breakfast. Every breakfast I eat for the week is going to be whole food, plant-based. And then once you have breakfast, like I feel comfortable with that, now I'm going to do breakfast and lunch. Sometimes dinner is the hardest one, especially if there's other people in your house. So maybe you do breakfast and lunch. So like I said, you really have to find a way to make it work for you. And again, if there's others in your family, finding a way to make it work for your family. If we talk about making it work for your family, we could take up a whole nother hour talking about that topic of conversation. But again, there's a lot of different ways to start, and it's really up to you to decide what works best with your lifestyle. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing and we're going to move over to Amy, who's going to just give you an example of one of our recipes at Live Healthy.
So in the next 10 minutes, we are gonna leave questions for the end, and I'll give Heidi a chance to look over the questions. Caleb's tracking the questions, which is great. Over the next couple of minutes, I'm gonna do a really quick demo for you of a recipe that we love at Live Healthy Appalachia, and then I'm gonna show you the Heidi's favorite way to use this recipe, and then my favorite way to use this recipe. So I'm going to switch over my camera to my my countertop right next to me, and we're going to go through a really quick corn and black bean salad recipe. So you won't be able to see me, but I'm right here. So this is a black bean and corn salad. I started with 2 cans of black beans. They're here in this bowl. And I just use this can of black beans from my local grocery store. I try to get no salt added if I can, if at all possible. And then this is 2 cups of corn. This is actually 1 whole bag of frozen corn. You could use, this is a 12-ounce bag of frozen corn. It ended up being exactly 2 cups. You could use fresh corn straight off the cob. You could also use canned corn if you have that and you like it. I prefer frozen corn. I've made this recipe with all 3 versions of corn. So we're just going to dump it in here. And the corn will defrost kind of as you go. So I'm just going to stir that up, and I'll put this bowl closer to the camera when I get other ingredients in. I'm going to add, this is a shallot. You could also use a red onion, but sometimes a whole red onion is a little bit too much for me. I don't want the whole onion, and I don't have a plan for the rest of an onion. So then I just have like a onion sitting around in my house and I don't have a plan for it. So sometimes I use a shallot and it's a lot smaller. And that's what I did today. I used a shallot. I just diced it up real small. So 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup of red onion. And then I really love cilantro. So I am using cilantro in this recipe. So maybe about a 1/4 cup of cilantro. If you love basil and have basil and you don't like cilantro, use basil, use whatever herb you want. You could use a combination of both, actually. I know cilantro can be controversial sometimes. So I'm going to put this here so you can see it a little bit better. And then this recipe calls for garlic powder. I like to use garlic powder because you don't have chunks of that fresh garlic in there. You don't have to worry about biting into fresh garlic. I'm going to put about a 1/2 teaspoon in here. I feel like you could add onion powder too, or other spices if you wanted. I like to keep it simple. This calls for 1 lime. Now, I really love my juicer. It's one of my favorite tools in the kitchen. If you don't have a juicer, you can totally use a fork and just squeeze the tines of the fork. Let me see if I can do it the other way so you can see it. You can just kind of get the fork in there and squeeze it if you don't have a juicer. I love my juicer, so I'm going to use my juicer. But the plan is, you know, and I think sometimes like having different tools can make some of these things a lot easier, but it's certainly not required and it's not necessary to have every single tool under the sun for everything. So this is a, ooh, my lemon doesn't fit in here. Let me see. Yeah, it does. So I'm going to squeeze my lemon in here as well. Now the fork tool won't necessarily work as well with a lemon because of the seeds. So you'll want to squeeze your juice into a different bowl if you don't have some kind of juicer situation to catch the seeds. So lime juice, lemon juice, and then this also, this recipe calls for an avocado. And so I have my avocado here. I have not cut it up yet. I figured I would do that at the last minute, just so you could kind of see my method of cutting an avocado. So this is a ripe avocado. If you haven't have experience picking a ripe avocado, I usually look for the darker fruit, something that's not super mushy when you touch it, and also something that's, you know, not super rock hard. So just kind of that middle ground. So I usually start by using a cutting board. You'll see maybe on cooking shows, people cutting avocados in their hands. That's not the safest way to do it. So I do suggest using your cutting board to cut around the pit of the avocado. And then I twist it to expose the pit. And then again, you might see sometimes people will stab the pit with holding it in their hands. I highly suggest that you do that while your avocado is on the cutting board. So you don't slip, so your pit doesn't slip. This one is having hard, so then you twist it and then you can take your pit out. So once it's at this stage, I keep it on the cutting board and I just slice into it, keeping your fingers out of the way, of course. And I make slices so that I can scoop out a cubed avocado. And the inclusion of avocado in this adds kind of that fatty texture. Sometimes when you are eating a lot of plant-based foods, it can feel like that fattiness is missing from something, the fattiness and hardiness. And so avocado is a good way to get some of that satiation if you're just eating a lot of vegetables. Same with this one. I'll go ahead and cube it. And that's pretty much it for the salad. Now, we use the salad with a lot of different things. I am a fan of just eating the salad sometimes as a snack with tortilla chips. We make our own, but there are some really good store-bought versions that are lower in sodium. So here we go. So this recipe doesn't really take long at all. It lasts pretty well in the fridge. I'm going to get my avocado in here. All right, so we have this salad. It makes a good salsa dip. You can eat it on just a regular salad. You could put this on tacos, as Heidi mentioned before. What I really like to do with it, I have a big appetite a lot of times. And so I'm a bit of a big eater. And so I have this this rotini pasta here that I've boiled ahead of time, and I'm going to make a pasta salad with it. So I'm going to add part of it to my pasta salad and mix it up. And you can make this ahead of time and let it marinate in the fridge for a while too, which is what I would suggest. But it'll kind of marinate in the pasta salad. So I would make a pasta salad with this. Heidi often will make a topping for a sweet potato. And actually I have that here too. So I baked a sweet potato in my toaster oven earlier today. And so you could also just make this a topping for your sweet potato. And this is actually what I'm going to have for lunch today, because I haven't even eaten lunch. So I'm going to top my sweet potato with some of this black bean salad. And I might add some salsa to this, or hot sauce, because I kind of like spicy things. I might add some curry powder or something like that, or not curry powder, chili powder if I wanted it a little spicier. But yeah, you could have this adaptable bean salad. I'm also a fan of other bean salads. Kidney beans can be used with carrots and Moroccan spices to do a Moroccan bean salad. So I think just kind of like a nice marinated bean salad can be a pretty adaptable, really quick thing to have on hand to add to different things. So that's my food demo for you. We do have some time left for questions, and any questions folks have from earlier, but also I'm going to switch my camera back to me. Questions that came up in the chat. And I'm going to try really hard not to stare at this bowl of sweet potato for the next 10 minutes, because now I'm really hungry.
I felt like that was so quick to make.
I could dig into it.
So I had a couple.
It was, and I didn't really have to prep a lot of things ahead of time. Awesome.
Yeah, great. Sorry, I think there's a little bit of lag, but I think we're good. We will overcome.
Yeah, I think there's. Yeah.
So a couple of questions. Someone asked, do you have any suggestions if I'm allergic to most legumes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'll first say that's unfortunate. I'm sorry you are allergic to most legumes. because we use legumes in a lot of our recipes. So of course, legumes provide fiber, but they also do provide our protein. So I don't know if you are able to consume things like tofu and tempeh. Those are whole food soy products that we also use. And I know peanuts are a legume. So I'm not sure if you could do maybe like an almond butter or something like a nut butter that doesn't have peanuts in it, based on your degree of reaction to that. But it makes it more challenging, but you can still make it work. So yeah, my suggestion would be maybe some whole food soy or some nut butters that don't have peanuts in them, if peanuts aren't good for you. Amy, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think that is a tough one. We have had folks who don't like legumes. And so, in those conversations, we talk about just other ways of getting fiber, because that's really a really great thing about legumes is the fiber. And so other ways to get fiber. Whole fruits are really great with fiber and protein too. So quinoa is a good place for protein. I think oats have some protein. So kind of just looking at other sources of fiber and protein as well. And there are other plant sources. It's a little more difficult to navigate.
Right.
That's great, thank you. Another question that came up earlier was, does intermittent fasting play into this at all and the health benefits of the whole food plant-based diet?
We actually, I will say there are benefits to intermittent fasting, but we do not incorporate that into our programming. So we are just focusing on the whole foods, the plant-based foods. We don't talk about the intermittent fasting, but there is research to kind of prove that that can be helpful for people.
Yeah, and I would even say we start with the basics and we try to present as much basic information as possible. And that way, if folks are looking to make tweaks or work with their healthcare providers to hone in on some really specific things, we definitely encourage that. Our approach is as broad and as basic as possible, in a sense that if you're getting a very wide variety of a lot of these different whole food plant-based ingredients, you're doing well.
Great, thank you. Another question that came up, I think we still have some time.
I'm looking at the chat questions too.
Yeah, so someone asked, is there a difference between steel cut oatmeal that you make in the crock pot and the oatmeal and the whole grain oatmeal, not in the packets, that you can put in the microwave and nuke for a couple minutes?
Yeah, so in our classes, we have a whole spectrum of oatmeal, right? So there's the steel cut oats, which are basically from the plant. They just chop them up. And then there's rolled oats, there's quick oats, there's instant oats. So other than the instant oats, which are in the packets, which have sugar and chemicals and stuff added, anything on the other end is fine. So steel cut oats, they do take longer to cook. So if that's not your jam, then the old fashioned oats, completely fine. The only thing that's different is they just steam them and roll them. They don't add any chemicals or any additives to them. Also, even the quick oats, completely fine. Again, they're a little bit, they're steamed, but they don't add anything to them. So quick oats, old fashioned oats, steel cut oats, all whole plant-based foods.
Agreed. And then I do see the question in the chat about swapping recipes online. We do swap recipes mostly in our classes. There are some recipes that are online. We actually have a Facebook group called Living Plant-Based in Appalachia. And people swap recipes on that page so much. There were like 5 posts at dinner time last night. I feel like everyone was posting their recipes of what they made. Heidi, you were one of them. You posted the eggplant parmesan recipe.
Yeah.
And so that's how people have been swapping a lot of recipes. It's the Facebook group. It's a closed group. It's a group and you have to request to join. We approve everybody usually. It's just called Living Plant-Based in Appalachia. And there are folks all over the place in that group, not necessarily just folks in Athens. So that seems to be primarily where we've been swapping recipes. But if people email me and ask me for a recipe for something, I usually try to send it to them. And we get our recipes from a lot of widely available sources online. That way, it's a way also to refer people to kind of find things on their own. I mean, we've developed some recipes ourselves, but we also think it's important to make sure that people know like some pretty tried and true resources online.
Yeah, that's great.
Oh, recipe resources.
I think Amy's frozen.
Yeah, she is frozen. Oh, there she's back. You were going to talk about some resources.
Yeah, Forks Over Knives has a lot of recipes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Heidi. I saw you posted the Facebook group in the chat there. That's great.
Yeah. So Living Plant-Based in Appalachia. I also wanted to say, just because you're not in Athens, doesn't mean you can't participate in our programming. As Amy mentioned, we're doing a lot of virtual programming right now. So our Complete Health Improvement Program, we have a class coming up. It is virtual. All the details are on our website, just livehealthyappalachia.org. And we, again, have other online programming, which you could participate if you're not in Athens County. I want to mention that real quick.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for people. Was there any other resources you wanted to put out there? I know you mentioned the website and it's in the chat. I didn't know if there was anything else about Live Healthy Appalachia that you were going to share.
I think that we do have a lot of resources on our website, but there's a lot of stuff out there on the web. If you just kind of look at whole food plant-based eating, you'll find a lot of really great stuff. I do it. I still look for things online for myself outside of our organization.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you both so much for participating. I really do appreciate it. It was a ton of fun. I enjoyed the cooking demo the most, probably. I said it, but it was kind of, we were lagging a little bit. I love how quick it was. You know, that was always like my concern with it, is it does take a little bit more time, but that was just so quick and simple, and it was great.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate you both taking time to help out Ohio University. And as I think Sam mentioned in the chat, you know, it's a great nonprofit organization, Live Healthy Appalachia. So be sure to check out that website. Thank you all for attending today as well. Be on the lookout for the survey that's going to come after this. And Power Hour is taking place every third Wednesday of the month. So be sure to join again. Visit the new giving page for Ohio University, give.ohio.edu. And I hope to see you at another Empower Hour or virtual event soon. So thanks again, everyone. Thanks, Heidi and Amy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.